Hey guys, this is our research poster. Our research presentation we're broken into three areas, and I'll be presenting the first part. So the title of our poster is Sexual Objectification and Gender Differences in Japanese Animation. And before we get into Japanese animation, it's important to understand what sexism is. And it's easy to see sexism as something to do with the past. But ambivalent sexism theory breaks sexism into hostile sexism and benevolent sexism. Hostile sexism is this idea of active sexism, where you're actively going out there and being sexist. So, for example, giving an offhanded remark to a female about doing the dishes. Benevolent sexism looks at the traditional viewpoints of the genders. So, for example, the male being the breadwinner and the female being the caregiver. And it's this idea that's saying that it's okay that the female is the caregiver and that the male is the breadwinner. So it kind of stunts progress. And so it's important to understand where these representations and ideas come from. And gender schema theory puts out this idea that males and females learn how to act from the role models around them. And as gender schema theory also puts out this idea that we learn these representations from the media that is provided to us. And so we wanted to investigate one of these mediums, and one of these mediums is Japanese animation. And some research has been done on this. Rayson and their colleagues looked at anime viewers in Japan and anime viewers in the US, and they found that benevolent sexism levels were higher in the Japanese viewers. And they also looked at the different categories of Japanese animation, and they found that females were more sexually objectified across the different genres in an anime episode. So concerning the aim, we wanted to investigate the different representations of males and females across an anime episode, and wanted to look at if males and females are more represented or less represented in an anime episode. And we also wanted to look at the different categories of sexual objectification across an anime episode, where the males and females are more sexually objectified across these different genres. And so we hypothesized that because there's a high level of benevolent sexism levels in Japan, that males will be more represented across the different categories in an anime episode, and that females will be more sexually objectified across the different categories of sexual objectification in an anime episode. So yeah, hopefully this gives a bit of a background, a bit of an insight, and thanks for listening.
For this experiment, participants were required to have an Anime Lab subscription to lawfully watch all 50 episodes, and an observation checklist was used to record data. 5 episodes were generated for each of the anime series, and character importance was operationalized for both the genders into 3 scales. Central, which is plot essential, secondary, which is important but not plot essential, and peripheral, which is plot unimportant. The sexual objectification for both the genders was operationalized into 4 areas, which include revealing clothing, revealing camera angles, actions and poses, and verbal or physical harassment. As you can see, Table 1 and Figure 1 show that there was a greater representation of male to female characters.
From this study, it can be stated that both of the proposed hypotheses were supported. These results may reflect that the traditional gender roles are more deeply ingrained into Japanese society when compared to the US and other Western countries. A possible explanation for the wide gap in gender differences found may be due to the anime industry being saturated by mostly male characters, and therefore viewpoints. It's not a new concept that the anime industry is supported by a male-dominated fanbase, and therefore the higher representation of male characters and the sexual objectification of female characters may be included to satisfy this male-dominated fanbase. However, the long-term and real-life implications of regular exposure to anime containing these sexist views and sexual objectifications has not been deeply researched and is a suggestion for future research. In terms of the study's limitations, while gathering the observational data, researcher subjectivity was apparent with the measures being scored differently among the 3 observers. To ease these differences, the observers' data was combined. Another limitation included an experimenter bias, where there may have been a difference in interpreting a sexually explicit scene, where one researcher would have interpreted a scene in anime to show female revealing clothing, another observer would not find that at all. It can be assumed that the confirmation bias may have limited generalizability of the results due to the researchers possibly searching for sexual objectification and sexually explicit scenes to confirm their preconceptions. Disproportionate sample distribution may have also skewed the data, due to the fact that the majority of episodes did not have an equal number of male and female characters. Lastly, selection bias may have limited the generalizability of the results due to the possibility of observers attending to certain details in the anime while missing other data. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation. We hope you've enjoyed it and have a nice day.